Within this lesson, we'll talk about food safety and also food security. The World Health Organization has some key facts about foodborne illness or food safety. Food safety is access to sufficient amounts of safe and nutritious food and is key to sustaining life and promoting good health. Different pathogens will cause foodborne illness, and the diseases could range from over 200 different types with various symptoms. It's estimated that 600 million people, almost 1 in 10 people in the world, will get foodborne illness every year, and people do die from this. Most serious cases affect children or individuals with low immunity, the elderly, and also pregnant women. We'll go over the different signs and symptoms of foodborne illness in this presentation, and also the pathogens that cause that, and a little bit about how to prevent it. Foodborne pathogens could cause severe signs and symptoms in individuals. They could be found on food or water. In fact, there's pathogens in all food and water, but our immune system usually could take care of most of that without it causing an illness. However, if things go wrong, the pathogens could multiply rapidly in a food or water source, and that high amount of pathogens within the food or water will cause illness, and it overcomes what the immune system is able to fight off. Foodborne disease can cause very painful signs and symptoms, and it can even cause long-lasting disability where the individual has problems the rest of their life or even death. Here you can see some of the names of the pathogens that cause foodborne illness. We have the bacteria Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli. There's also viruses. One of the most common foodborne illness viruses is the norovirus. There's also hepatitis, the staph bacteria, and it also could be caused from chemicals or from fungus or insects. Now, in order to prevent the pathogens from causing foodborne illness, it's important that the food is grown in a sanitary environment and condition, that it's cleaned, that individuals who are preparing food will clean their hands and surface areas so we don't have cross-contamination, that the food is cooked to a proper temperature, and then once it's prepared, that it's kept, if the food is supposed to be cold, that it's kept colder than 40 degrees, or if it's supposed to be kept hot, it's kept hotter than 140 degrees. So the key is food cannot be kept between the ranges of 40 to 140, which is room temperature, for more than 2 hours. It has to either be cold or hot. At room temperature, foods, the pathogens within the food will rapidly multiply, so we need to keep it either cold or hot, depending on what type of food that is. Here are some of the unsafe foods and also beverages that can cause foodborne illness. Probably the top 2 causes of foodborne illness are unclean drinking water from unsanitary conditions throughout the world. People do not have access to clean water, and that's going to cause a lot of illness. And then also not cooking the animal products, or not cooking food to proper temperatures, and that goes for any animal product, meat, fish, eggs, different things like that. There's also a problem with feces in the fields where produce is grown. That needs to be cleaned off. And also the hands of the food preparers need to be cleaned very often. Some of the signs and symptoms of foodborne illness. Primary thing that people will be dying from, unfortunately, would be dehydration if there's too much vomiting or diarrhea. As far as isolating issues with water, poor water supplies could have heavy metals, microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, pesticides, sewer runoff, or highway runoff. So the water supplies could be dirty. In fact, in some third world countries, they only have one type of water supply where the individuals are drinking, washing in it, and also urinating or defecating in the water. So this could be a problem with access to clean water throughout the world. In the little chart, you can see what might be in the water to cause disease. There has been concern about the safety of fish, not only from viruses and bacteria in the water getting into the fish, but also chemicals and heavy metals getting into the fish. And right now, one of the worldwide concerns is how much mercury is in fish, and if that's consumed, it could cause cognitive disability in younger individuals, in fetuses, in babies, in children who are consuming too much heavy metal fish. And so you can see this chart shows you some of the fish with high levels of mercury, lower levels of mercury, and the lowest or safest type of fish to consume. Different places in the world have different water supply and different microbes or pathogens in the water supply. And typically the individuals that live there will tolerate those pathogens better than travelers or people who do not come from that area. If we travel to an area where we're not used to the water supply and we're not used to the pathogens in that, it could make an individual sick, and that could be termed traveler's diarrhea. Whereas the people who live in that area, their immune system is used to those pathogens and kill it off more rapidly. And moving on to food security and hunger. Food insecurity is a state of being without reliable access to sufficient quality of affordable, nutritious food. We have food insecurity where individuals do not have access to an adequate amount of food for their physiological needs of energy. We have this throughout the world, in all countries, including the United States. 800 million people in the world live with hunger each day. And in order to cure this, we're going to have to be able to produce more food and make sure that there's access to that food throughout the world. And there's some barriers to that financially and politically. We should identify locations that have food shortages, study those as case studies, and see if we could come up with some solutions that might not be impeded by financial or political intervention. We have nearly 15% of the population in the United States in poverty, and that's the number one cause of hunger or food insecurity in the United States. 48 million people live in food insecure households, and that includes many children. So we have about 14% of the United States households with food insecurity. In this slide, you can see where some of those states range. Unfortunately, there are a few that are over the 14% average of food insecurity. And the number one state for food insecurity is Mississippi. And you could see the different states and the areas on this slide. Globally, there's a food crisis in terms of food security. And you could see that this has risen over the years. And as today, 800 million people in the world do not have enough food to lead a healthy and active life. As I said before, there's several different reasons for this, including poverty, including the economic conditions where the individual lives, political reasons, political laws and implementations that have driven food away from individuals who need it the most. There's also problems with the weather causing food crises within the United States as well, perhaps droughts or floods, not enough rain in various Midwest or California locations causing the food prices to rise. Also, a lot of it is dependent on the price of oil and gasoline supply to get the food transported. But there is a global food crisis throughout the world. The highest percentage of hunger is in African countries. The continent with the most hungry people is in Asia. We also more recently have seen a rise in hunger in Yemen, and most recent in Venezuela, where political decisions have caused a food crisis in the South American country, where individuals cannot get access to enough food or medicine, and many people are starving to death. So it's important that we're aware of food safety issues, foodborne illness, and also food security, and it's something that we could study culturally to see if we could come up with solutions. In order to find those solutions, we have to find what causes that and see if we could eradicate that with different steps and goals.